Speaking of public policy agendas, it's a rare ability for someone to be able to go back to Congress and not only have a clear agenda, which everybody sort of has when they go to Washington, whether we like it or not, they have an agenda, but it's very difficult to convince 434 men and women from places like Amarillo, Texas, and Seattle. I'm not picking on these places. Or Nashua, New Hampshire, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, to actually go along with an agenda, and in this case of modernizing our schools first into the 20th century and now into the 21st century. Getting and trying to work through the issues of state versus federalism, which are at the core of our country's debates since the beginning of time. Local versus states, local versus national, dealing with so many embedded interests. George Miller has been a leader in education in Washington. He is a thinker, strategist, someone who's an incredibly effective, inspirational leader and an all-around good guy, and he represents the onion capital of the world, Vacaville, California, okay? So with that, we're delighted to welcome him to New York today, and we're so thrilled to borrow a few hours of his incredibly busy schedule in leading the House of Representatives on every issue relating to children and education in this country. Please give a warm welcome to Chairman George Miller.
Well, thank you very much, Gary, for that wonderful introduction. I'm here completely by accident. I ran into to Gary and the Cookie Monster and Elmo in the halls of Congress the other day, where they were promoting a magnificent set of DVDs that they've done for our preschoolers and a little bit older children who have parents in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it was really quite remarkable. These were DVDs about stress, about separation, about multiple separations, about multiple homecomings, about the loss of limbs, and how you talk to children and how you may be able to make children more comfortable. And if anybody thinks that children can't multitask and multi-process, try that set of things for young children to deal with now for almost 5 years. It's a great. It was so warmly welcomed by the members of Congress, and the distribution, I think, is going to grow a lot as we put our links up to that. Joan, thank you so much for the center and for today. This is a great opening night. This is just fantastic, and it's great to have to see this facility created in this area, and I hope I can call upon it a lot as a resource. It's very exciting for me to be here. I'd like to just quickly introduce Alice Kane, who is the Chief of Staff for Education on the Education and Labor Committee. Alice, stand up. You don't get to wave. Stand up. Thank you. I have to do that because you know how online you can have all this online storage so you don't clutter up your computer and all that? Well, that's my brain over there. She's got it all figured out. I mean, I just have to figure out the code. But let me thank you for all of your contributions. So many people in this room I've known in other lives and second lives and different careers and all of the rest of that. I've spent my entire life in Congress, 34 years now, working with children and families at risk, and I've loved every moment of it. Now being the chair of the Education Committee, I get to do more than love it. I got to see if I can do something now. So now I'm going to have a batting average. So now it's going to get much more difficult. One of the exciting things about being in the majority is having the speaker. And one of the first things that Speaker Pelosi said was that this Congress was going to be about our children, our children, our children, our future, our future, our future. And if you look at those two things, every time you consider policy, you get a different answer. What you might have thought you were going to do with whatever it is that you're considering. And many of us remember before she took the gavel to the House of Representatives, she asked all the children in the House chamber to come join her on the dais. I had the fun of getting that to be the first election of a speaker, the first woman speaker in the history of the country to be in Second Life. And we created a domain, or an island, I guess you'd call it, of Capitol Hill. And then I got to do the first town hall after she became speaker. All the questions were about ethics, and the island's been dormant since then. But reopening soon. No, I'm just teasing. Of course, they weren't about ethics. They're about the future of the country. Technology and education is something that I've tried to pay a lot of attention to. I've spent a lot of time. I've had the honor over the last 6 years of being on George Lucas's Education Foundation as an honorary board member, and watched his videos and the board meetings, and with people that part of that looked at schools all across this country that are doing some of the most exciting things in teasing out all of the intelligences of children, and using all of the different media that's available to them to do that with the exact populations that so many of us are terribly concerned about. So that's been very exciting. The second introduction, of course, was I picked up one of James G's books about what the video games teach us about how kids learn. So I came here this morning to get an answer, because I couldn't figure it out from the book. But I'm not great on video games. I play with my youngest grandson for a little while, and then I say, how can I get over the barrier in the Star Wars game? How can I get over the barrier? And he says in that wonderful parental voice, Papa, I told you 4 times. And the shortest period of time from that question and answer is, of course, when he says, Papa, drop out, I got to go ahead without you. I got to go ahead without you. So it's a lot of fun being online with all of this content that you're all creating. The best of both worlds. I've sang it now 12,000 times, but I still don't know the words, but I'm sure it's good for Hannah Montana. But I'm trying. I'm afraid to open my brick breaker on my, my BlackBerry. What the hell? I'm struggling. But I have a deep interest in this, and I think it's very, very important. I was really excited when they did a survey of asking young people about newspapers, not too far down the street here, the future of newspapers, and one of the young people said, oh, I think they're wonderful. She says, it's wonderful that my grandmother gets her exercise going out in the driveway to get the papers before she has her coffee. At that moment, I suggested maybe my wife should go out and get the newspaper, but I didn't need that much exercise. But maybe that shows the gap that we're talking about here, and the change in generations and the excitement of technology. Because it's really quite amazing, the potential. I was sitting here at the break, and I was thinking, as we've looked at this knowledge gap, the learning gap, the achievement gap, the gap, the sociological gap, the gap that we know so terribly well has existed in this country for a very long time, but unfortunately getting worse. My sense is that a lot of the solutions get easier with technology. That many of the costs that prevented you from reaching the gap are now being driven down. And the opportunity to access them is becoming wider and wider. I appreciate the gap in whether you have a computer or not, but there's a lot of access to computers if students are engaged and interested, and they can find them. And we'll continue to try to spread the availability. But I think it's very exciting, because I think many of the things that politicians have talked about, what they didn't like about schools, are things, they want to keep saying, I went to a school, and they had a library, and they had a book in it, and it said, when a man lands on the moon. What the hell do they care? What do you care anymore what the book says? Excuse me, we're in a publisher house. But the point is this: when you want to find out when a man landed on the moon, go to Google, get it, and let's move on. And let's talk about why we sent them, what he did there, what was the hope, what were the aspirations, and what did the nation think? And why did somebody say this is what a nation should do at that particular time? What were the politics? We think it was just discovery? No, we're going to beat those Russians, and we did. So that's the excitement of it. I think that's the excitement of it.